Hey there guys, and welcome back to another Factorio base tour. I'm Xterminator, and thank you for joining me for this one. And today we are going over a base submitted to me by Niels or Corona Extra. I'm not sure which name they prefer to be called by, but their name is Niels in game, so we'll go with that. Um, and this is an interesting base. They're all interesting, but this one I stopped because I was gonna say megabase. I think like physical size wise, it's definitely megabase. This does only produce 666 signs per minute. I say only, that's actually quite a lot. But compared to some of the other megabases, maybe not a ton. So depending on your own kind of level of what you consider to be a megabase, this may or may not be, but physical size wise, this is definitely, I would consider a megabase. Very, very rail and train centric, as you can kind of see in the mini map here. And we'll look deeper into that. It is using some mods. It's using the Logistic Train Network mod. I have turned off the notification messages though, because they just spam the chat. So turn those off. In terms of other mods, just to kind of show you, nothing like majorly game changing. Just like bottleneck, wide chests, I guess, maybe a little vehicle snap, squeak through, max rate calculator, mostly quality of life type of stuff, bullet trails, even distribution, etc. But nothing that like changes recipes or anything like that. Yeah, so let's take a look at the map. This is the map, and holy moly, I don't know that I've ever seen. I mean, I looked at this before. I don't know that I've ever seen like this intense of a rail system, like all compacted in one area necessarily. And this is the majority of stuff. So this does not look like infinite resources of any sort. This is, looks pretty natural. There are very few resource patches on this map. Again, it's under 1,000 signs per minute, so it's not like they're using like hundreds of thousands of resources a minute. Tens of thousands, yes, but they only have a few resource patches tapped. There's an iron one down here, some oil down here, which is quite good. Copper, stone, more iron, and then kind of just some stuff spread out here. Fairly straightforward looking rail network in terms of the main lines, especially going out to the outpost. But as we start getting closer to the base, this is where things get pretty crazy. Some pretty intense junctions. They seem a bit more intense because they're actually using solar panels and accumulators within the rails. And I really, really like this. I always find this very intriguing because I think this is actually a fantastic use of space. Now, in map view, it actually looks pretty good. In this view, I guess it depends on your tastes if it looks good or not. The way they've done this, it actually looks decent because they've made things like kind of symmetrical and even and tried to make it look nice. Like putting them in here and stuff, depending on your taste, may not look good. But the point I'm getting at is, despite what you think of how it looks, this is an extremely good use of space because when you build rails, especially larger rail systems like this, you have, usually space in between them, even in here. And instead of building these huge, like, blocky solar fields somewhere, even if you have, like, solar designs that maybe look kind of nice, instead of just having this massive solar field somewhere, and I mean, space is almost infinite in the game, but still, using space that just already exists from what you've built is really, really smart, really ingenious. And, I mean, obviously, Niel's not the first person to do this at all. I know Zisto, did this in his base. Many others have done this in their base, but I think this may actually be one of the first base tours I've actually done where I've seen this, and I really like it. I'm a big fan of this. I like the way they've done it, made it, try to look nice and symmetrical, and then it's just a great use of space. So while we're at it, let's check the power. This does use almost 4.5 gigawatts, between 4.3 and 4.4 it looks like. It does have the capacity to supply 5.8 gigawatts. Now, the majority of it is actually nuclear. So despite there being solar all throughout the rails, the majority of it is nuclear power, which you might have seen was located over here. These designs look pretty nice. Very straightforward designs, I'd say. No steam storage, which I'm personally a fan of. I don't really like steam storage, personally. Looks super good with the heat pipe glow. Very, very nice. Maybe you could minimize pipes a little bit, but overall, very nice designs here. They seem to be placed a little haphazardly, but otherwise good. Now, I'm really interested in taking a look at the builds and the rail system we have going on here. So, trying to make sense of these rails may be a little difficult. Not that they're poorly designed or anything, mostly just that there's like so many things going so many different directions. Trying to figure out exactly. It seems like a fairly standard four-way, four-lane rail system, 2 lanes each direction, and this is right-hand drive. It does have these like crossovers, which I will say I don't know. I don't see this very often. It seems to work in this map. Usually I try to avoid these, and I think they can cause problems, but they seem to have made it work. And this is actually, yeah, this is interesting. I'm trying to think. I guess they have their system built in such a way where a train may need to cross over. I think that one just did there to kind of get to where it needs to go. And these are actually all throughout different areas of the map here. You can see them again over here. Now, again, they are using Logistic Train Network, so that's like what all this circuitry is. I don't really understand it. Obviously, Logistic Train Network mod basically just calls trains where they need to go when they're needed. That's a very, very generalization of the mod. But, yeah, we have this crazy system in the middle here, and these look like just stackers, general stackers. So we have a logistic train stop is what all these are. This is kind of just like the train yard, I guess you could say. And you can see these guys just, they're being called where they need to go, and they're leaving. So, like, this one is going to a temporary stop, and then I would imagine is going to continue on to wherever it needs to go. It's being called over here let's actually turn on train stop. So, stone pickup. There we go. And it's dropping off, and then it's going to go where it needs to. So this is really fascinating to watch. I actually really love watching this in map view and even just in game view too. This is a very, very busy area and a very large four-way junction here, which has a ton of traffic going through it. The rail network seems to work quite well. They seem to have managed to optimize it pretty nicely. Like, I don't see anything that would remotely be a train jam or anything like that. Now, there's not a ton of trains. If we pull up the train menu here, there's 63 trains. I imagine, though, this could support quite a few trains, this network. I imagine this could support well over 100 trains without issues. So, very, very cool there. We may look at the rails later, but let's hop into the build. So, everything's labeled, which is super nice. We have purple science, yellow science, red science, green science. We'll actually look at them closer. Just trying to find everything. Blue science and maybe not military. It would be understandable. It's fairly common to leave out military science. Biters are on, as you can see. Double wall here, which I like, and kind of just walls of lasers seem to do the trick. So let's hop in. Very small builds, again, under 1,000 science per minute. And everything is beaconed and moduled. And these seem to be beaconed really well. The 12 beacons in this case, fairly standard, the same throughout. Using belts, it seems to be basically a complete belt base for the most part. There's a little bit of bot usage here, like to bring some iron and copper over here. That's something I would definitely use. Like, I'm not surprised that bots are being used for that. That's actually a pretty common thing that I would use bots for, even in belt base. There's that. We are on blue belts, of course, for this. And, gears here. 1 gear machine for 5 science machines, which makes sense. Everything's productivity moduled, everything that can be anyway. Yeah, so everything's productivity moduled. Then we have inserters and belts over here for green science. A very simple, very straightforward builds. I like it. And this flows over, and they're loaded into trains. And the trains, so they're using these chests. This is the long chest thing instead of just multiple chests. I don't really know the reason for them doing this. I don't know if it's a UPS thing, because it's still using the same. It's still using 6 inserters, right? So you could just achieve the same exact thing by having 6 different chests. I don't know if this maybe holds more than 6 chests would. I don't know exactly the reasoning for this. But I don't think it's really cheaty. I mean, it's a mod, but it's it's not like it's allowing this to load faster or anything, at least to my knowledge. Maybe just more evenly actually would probably be the reason for this, because when you have 6 different chests, it's possible that some may have more science than others and load unevenly and stuff like that. So maybe this is just to prevent that, which is understandable. I might, I would maybe do that myself. I don't have anything against that. So red and green science loaded up here, and then they'll go to the labs, which we'll find here shortly. And then if we kind of move on to some intermediates here, we have green circuits right here. And this is this is so nice to look at. I love this. Just seeing these rivers of belt for copper, iron, and circuits here, and then red circuits as well. So this is very nice. Again, 12 beacon setups on these. It looks like utilizing undergrounds very well here, especially the full length of the blue undergrounds. Now they are belting the cable, which I find interesting. I'm definitely not a fan of it. Again, it works. I mean, especially we can see with bottleneck, there's not a problem here. I'm definitely not a fan of belting cable for circuits, but it doesn't mean it can't work. I just personally don't like doing it. But this, I mean, you can see this is working and stuff. So it's not really a problem. So they kind of just send copper through here. They are utilizing 3 belts, so that helps a lot. That is actually really smart. If they just did this 1 belt, I suspect it would not be enough. So they were really smart using 3 belts there for the cables to keep up with it. And then they're actually doing, interestingly, they're doing a 2-to-1 ratio. When you use productivity modules and speed beacons on green circuits, it becomes very close to 1-to-1 ratio. Maybe they just didn't like the occasional, either the little overproduction, that it would do or something, or underproduction. I don't know. 2-to-1, I've almost never seen that before with moduled and beacon circuits. So definitely, I think, a bit of an oversupply of cable, but not really any huge issue with that. Or I guess it's 3-to-2, actually, now that I'm looking at this. My mistake. Now that we're looking at the whole thing, it's 3-to-2, which is a standard circuit ratio. But once you module it and beacon it, it becomes basically a 1-to-1 ratio. So slight cable overproduction, but nothing wrong with that, especially considering it is being pelted. Copper is coming in here, iron's coming in, undergrounding where it needs to, and basically like using every possible tile around these machines with inserters, which you do need. This is extremely fast with 12 beacons. This is 2, 4, 6, looks like 7 lanes of iron coming in, and potentially the same for copper. Tons of lanes of circuits coming out which load in the trains, of course. And then the red circuit build, it looks like they have some central wire production here that just flows to many different red circuit machines. You can see it's flowing basically over to, so this one here seems to supply 2, 4, 7. Is that right? If I'm following this correctly, so it's 1 to 7, which may be right for beacons and modules. I don't have that ratio memorized, but this definitely seems to work. Very easy to tell with bottleneck. So this just kind of extends up to here very nicely, and again, loaded onto trains. They are using 1-2 trains, so single-headed trains and very small trains. I'm seeing this more and more frequently in the base tours I'm going over. People using lots of small trains opposed to like medium-sized or huge trains. And I think there's pros and cons to every size of train you use. This definitely seems to work well, and I am seeing it fairly often here. Now, if we look at steel, steel is, it looks like they're bringing in iron, a lot of iron, and turning it into steel rather than just turning ore kind of directly into steel in the same process. And then outputting 3 blue belts of steel, which is insane. Like, it's obviously what's needed, but 3 blue belts of steel is a massive amount of steel. Like, it's not surprising that this, requires so many belts, like 9 belts of, or 10 belts even, of iron. So there's that. Now let's move on to oil, since we're just kind of move around the base here. We have some uranium processing and fuel reusage here. And then Oil, pretty standard. It looks like they're basically using 12 beacon for assembler stuff, and also, I suppose, chemical plants. They're basically doing max possible beacons for all the builds. So keeping a standard beacon layout throughout. And then we have some cracking here. Both types of cracking, as well as sulfur production, if we zoom in a little bit. Utilizing pumps a lot, which, while not super great for UPS, it definitely helps with the throughput. Update is, we're totally fine. Not even remotely close to hitting our max. I would hope not, considering the size of the base and stuff. So, utilizing the pumps a lot, definitely just trying to eke as much throughput and flow rate through this as possible, which I definitely like. Using quite a few tanks, a little more than I would personally be comfortable with, but again, it certainly works. It looks like this is the main oil. I think this is the only oil area. And then they are using, like I said, bots to bring over the copper and iron, which is understandable. I think I would probably do this in this situation as well. Just routing belts through here and training in the iron and copper just for the batteries sounds like a bit of a pain to me and a little bit silly. So using just, and I say just some, it really is. It's hardly any bots at all. There's total less than 300 bots. Well, maybe around exactly 300 bots being used in the entire network, which is not just this. This is the entire base. Now, they do have one network extending all the way out to the Outpost, which is a little bit iffy to me. Of course, if the bots don't need to go out there, that's not a problem at all, and they don't really. Really, the farthest distance of travel we see is just going to and from the nuclear builds, which it's not a big deal. It's such low demand that I think that's totally fine. But yeah, mostly it's just this traffic here. So probably very slightly under 300 bots used for that, which is very low. And then, of course, we have our rocket control units here. Pretty standard. Blue circuit and speed modules coming in here. The speed modules are actually made locally, and they're belted on over here to these, and then a huge line of the rocket control units, and they have placed a silo right here in the very close vicinity instead of training these things around, which I think is nice. And you can see maybe some low density structure or rocket control unit problems, or maybe exactly as much as it needs. And then rocket fuel. I mean, rocket fuel is super simple. I think the simplest of the ingredients to make the rocket fuel, or the solid fuel, and then boom, you got it here. And then low density structures, of course, require a ton of copper, so they're belting in 4 blue belts of copper, a blue belt of steel, and then copper or plastic as well. I am mixing up my words today. I apologize. This is actually backed up. And then if we move over to here, our smelting. So this is really kind of where everything starts. It looks like if we measure this here, this is 13 furnaces. And this is interesting. So this is 8 beacons, except for this one, which is 7 beacons. I'm curious. I'm really curious on this because they throw a beacon in here to try to, I guess, make this as close to these as possible. But this could, if they move this back one tile, they could just put these here and then have this be 8 beacons as well. Again, not trying to be super critical or anything. Just things I'm noticing that I like to point out in base tours. I mean, everything works, so, I'm by no means saying it's bad or anything. I'm just curious on what the thought was here. Maybe they just didn't notice. I mean, maybe they just didn't think of this, and that's honestly, you would be surprised the amount of things, or not surprised, the amount of things that I just, don't even notice when I'm playing. When I stream and my viewers point out all this stuff, it's like, wow, I'm an idiot. How did I not think of this? How did I not notice this? And as a external viewer, it's very easy to pick up on things that maybe as the player in the moment, super close to it, you're not seeing. And that could certainly be the case here. Or maybe they have a reason for doing this. I don't see an obvious reason for not moving these back one tile, aside from maybe they just didn't think of it, and that's totally acceptable. But anyway, so this is outputting just a blue belt per, some side loading going on here, and outputting 1 belt each, which comes all the way and equals 12 belts here of copper. And then I would imagine it's a very similar or identical thing for iron. So iron ore comes in, basically identical build, comes over here. We do see not really as big of a balancer and stuff going on here, which is interesting. On the plate side, there really isn't a whole balancer here. We actually have like a supplemental iron build over here, which is pretty interesting. Decided they needed more iron maybe after the fact, or just couldn't fit it here. More low density structure production on site for Yellow Science, which is a bit different. I don't see that super often. Like, I mean, it's not that I don't see it often. It's just usually if there's on-site stuff for Yellow Science, it's everything on site. So to be training in some and then making these here, I think is a bit different. Nothing wrong with it at all. Just kind of nice to see some variety here. So all Yellow Science done right here, a total of 9 assemblers. Very clean looking. Coming into here, which again loads into a train. And then we have the labs up here, which we'll look at. Purple Science. If we come over here, rails, rails out the wazoo here. Of course, those being made on site, I think makes sense to me. And this just, I mean, the amount of rails for this is just ridiculous. So very, very well done keeping this supplied. It's hard, I think, to keep Purple Science supplied with rails. In fact, it may not even fully be. You can see these turning off once in a while because of lack of rails. And man, I don't blame them. Like this, it's really hard to supply Purple Science, especially when you module it and beacon it. It's just they require so many rails. I mean, 30 rails per. It's just even if they're technically producing enough, which it looks like they might be, the belts and stuff may in the way the inserters are outputting, it may just not be like the throughput needed to get there. And you see these gaps in here, even though like this one's backed up. I would say maybe they could fix some of these problems by either changing inserter stack size, because stack inserters actually can like cause issues like this just due to the way how they like pick up a bunch of items at once and drop all at once and stuff like that, and the time it takes to do that. And then also maybe by changing kind of where some of these output, because you can see this one is backed up a lot of the time, because this side's actually full, whereas this one has a lot of gaps. So maybe trying to do something, I don't know if it really could be done, but doing something where you're getting like, you're switching, basically adding an inserter somewhere to put on this side and like take this one away or something. So there's that. And then we have these guys. This is a general mall here, or production hub, whatever you want to call it. Seems like just about everything you would need. Some miners, inserters, belts up there in that quadrant. Kind of logistical or circuit network logistical stuff here with chests, some lasers up there, and then like everything in between: trains, pipes, oil, nuclear. I think this is a modded landfill thing. And there we go. Fair bit of circuit stuff going on here. It looks like... Okay, so this is actually a Robo Network pass-through, which is pretty cool. So if we take a look here, they have isolated their their mall area here from everything else, which is pretty interesting. I can kind of see the reasoning for doing that. So these logistic pass-throughs work really well. I've definitely had questions before and seen questions. People asking about like networks and having bots not fly super far and then like running out of energy and all this stuff. Network pass-throughs like this can a lot of times be a very good solution that you may not think of initially. Is if you separate your networks like this and then leave one space here between them to put the inserters and have like the requesters, or in this case storage chests and a buffer chest on one network, and then have your output chest providers of whichever kind, or storage chests or whatever on the other network. You can move stuff between networks without actually connecting. You could also, of course, do it with just belt it across or train it across. But this is very simple, still using bots, which I like a lot. I use it, or in the past have used it quite a bit. And then let's just take a look at the labs here, which I think should be very straightforward. Okay, so we are producing military science. I'll need to look in the base again where that's produced. So this guy is 12 beacons, again, because there's 14 effect sources. 2 of those are modules in here. The rest would be the 12 beacons. And then, yeah, so this comes over, belting in. I want to find, so here's a military. See if we can find, so it looks like there's actually nothing here. I'm not, it's because of the way LTN works. There's not actually a train assigned here. Because I wanted to use that to find, here it is, right here. Blends in a little bit with the rail color and such. So grenades, walls, piercing ammo, all made right here. It looks like 5 military science machines, which is pretty good. Belting in ironstone, making everything locally. Copper and steel here, of course, for the piercing ammo. Pretty nice. Again, utilizing the nice length of the blue underground belts. And then I think the only thing we didn't look at, maybe we didn't look at blue science. Pretty straightforward. Engines, sulfur, and red circuits here. Again, 12 beacons. And this is going to be 12 assemblers, I believe. Yep. So very well done there. Everything seems to be ratio pretty well. We can look at production. So production is, like I said, if we look over like 1 minute, generally the production is about, it's like 650 to 670 science per minute. I think averaging is about 666. If we look over an hour, we'll probably get a bit of a better idea. So over the last hour, it's a little low. Maybe had some throughput issues. Looking over the last 10 hours, it's super low probably because I imagine it's actually not a ton of playtime on here. It's like 20, sorry, not 20. Why don't we actually just look at this? That'd be a lot easier. About 124 hours, so actually quite a lot. Some of those may have been production issues or supply issues, but they did say that it runs at about 666 science per minute. Other general production numbers, almost 50k iron a minute, 35k copper a minute, 23k circuits, over 6,000 steel a minute, which is quite hefty. If we look at all time, 63 mil, 58 mil, 36 mil, or 7 mil here, so definitely got the 20 million circuit achievement, almost twice at this point. Ton of cable, unsurprisingly. 1.5k lasers. Pretty decent production numbers here. Hey, we just got an achievement. Research all technologies. Well, that is an awesome achievement to get here. So I think that's basically it, guys. I mean, the rail network, I already looked at most of it. Again, 4 lanes. This is like a really close junction area here. This is this is a death trap for me. I would definitely not want to walk near that. Basically, this whole rail system is a death trap for me. This is a crazy intersection here. But they have signaled it well, it looks like. I mean, the fact, you can see 2 or more trains moving through here at once simultaneously. That's a thing you definitely want to see in a well done junction. Of course, unless the trains need to go like in a direction where they would hit each other, then obviously they're not going to move through at the same time unless it's signaled wrong. So this seems to be signaled very well. Now we actually find a train here that's bigger than the normal train, and this seems to be an outpost train. Okay, so they are using, it looks like 1-4 trains for the outpost trains, which, well, maybe. Okay, oil are using 1-2s, but the ore, it looks like they're using 1-4s, which is actually very smart. I applaud them for this because ore stacks in half the amount as plates, and half the amount of a lot of stuff. Ore stacks in 50s, plates stack in 100s, a lot of other stuff stacks in 100s or more, like circuits 200s. So using bigger trains because of the lower stack amount in stuff to kind of make up for that makes sense, and it works perfectly ratio-wise. Well, theoretically, that you would have a train twice the size for ore as you would for a plate, because plate stacks twice as much as ore. Now, of course, once you throw productivity in there, that kind of throws it off a little bit, but that's why I said theoretically. But generally, I really, really like that they're doing that. I didn't notice it initially, and I think that's pretty awesome. Now, one last thing to touch on I noticed is they have a solid wall here, and then they just have like little pillbox bunkers here. I don't know if they decided that and then they have no defense here. So I don't know if they decided they just didn't need defense here, or just kind of working their way around building it. Definitely looks like they will want defense here soon. This base is already aggroed. I mean, they're very likely to just attack this, which they do have defended, so, well, mostly. So maybe that's just the plan. They do have artillery as well, it looks like, at the outpost. By the way, this is a huge pollution cloud. um, so they are using some artillery as well, which is pretty nice to clear out bases, which may be the other reason that it seems underdefended in some areas, because they realize that the artillery is kind of pushing things out pretty far anyway. And yeah, I really like this. Really cool base. I can't say I've seen a train system like this in a long time, or before on a base tour at least. That's like this much stuff, like this many tight rail junctions packed together. But it's actually really cool and fascinating. I could probably just watch this for like 20 minutes. So very, very cool there, watching all these trains work. Really well done with the rail system to make this work. I think I would actually probably get a headache making this work myself. So very well done there. I think it helps a lot, actually, if they are using Logistic Train Network. Now, with the train stop limit in vanilla, you could probably still accomplish this, but without that and without Logistic Train Network, this, I think, would be a lot harder. I do like how they kind of have spiraled this around. It looks really cool. The rail network is really cool to look at, especially in map view with the solar panels. So great base. Thank you, Niels, for submitting this. Apologies it took so long. Again, if you guys have bases you'd like me to either base tour, like this and the other videos in the base tour, or base review, which I've done one of so far, where I actually go in and very much critique things and stuff. I did some critiquing in here, but the actual base review would be like very specifically a critique and trying to improve it. Definitely submit those. Discord, contact me on Discord is the best method. And the reason for some of these taking so long is just because I like to space these out a little bit. I don't want to release like 3 base tours in a week and then have none for like 3 months when it's not, because if I go through them and no one submits anymore, then I'm out. So I like to kind of space them out so I can at least do like once a month or so, or in this case, maybe two or three a month at most. So there you go, guys. Thank you so much, Niels, again, for submitting this. Really cool base, really well done. And I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, a like's much appreciated, for myself and to show support for Niel's base. And then if you're new to the channel, welcome, and feel free to subscribe and turn on the little bell notification. Keep up with all the new videos. And I would love to hear your thoughts down below as well. Until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.